you are facing what's happening to the UK in a very acute way. And like, while we're all celebrating this peace deal today and absolutely want peace for the Middle East, one thing we don't want here in America is a ton more Muslims emigrating into the United States. Sorry, but we don't. And in the UK, it's already happened. And you've been speaking out about it. So it'd be great if we could have a peace deal where the Palestinians stay where they are and it's rebuilt, Gaza's rebuilt, and they have a real home they can hang out in and raise their families in. But the solution is definitely not for them to come here or continuing to flood into places like the United Kingdom, which has already changed, it looks like irrevocably. You tell me, what's your overall take on what's happening there?
Yeah, well, as an aside, that clip that we just saw with Trump and Starmer was a microcosm of the state of the UK at the moment. The nerdy loser kid who thinks for a second that maybe the cool kid is going to show him some attention, but unfortunately put back in his box pretty quickly. The word irrevocably, Megyn, is an interesting one. And this is the question, on GB News, on my podcast, but in the pubs across the UK, we talk about a lot, because we've seen the decline that's happened, and we do wonder, is there a chance of reversal? That is the key question this country faces. Now, this country's gone through dark moments before. You had, the Vikings were raiding the countryside 1,000 years ago. You had the IMF in the 1970s bail out the country. You've had world wars. It's not like, and just like the US, it's not like there haven't been dark moments. The thing which concerns a lot of people is economic problems can be fixed. You can change tax policies. You can change regulations. The concern that so many people have is that swift demographic change can't just be reversed overnight. If you change your demographics, and make no mistake, the demographic change in the UK has been extraordinary in a short period of time. That is irreversible. And so a lot of people are looking at the next 3 to 4 years before a general election in the UK, and they are saying this could be the last best hope for what was once the greatest country in the world before the US took on that mantle.
I know this really caught your attention. I mean, it's been catching your attention, but you made international headlines when you really spoke out about this problem after the attack on Yom Kippur, the most holy Jewish holiday of the year, on Jews in the UK by a guy named Jihadi al-Shami, which means jihad. We know what that is. And then from Syria. So it's like jihadi from Syria. This guy unleashes a terrorist attack on Jews in the UK on Yom Kippur, driving his vehicle into a crowd outside of a synagogue in Manchester, then attacking others with a knife. 2 Jewish men were killed. At least 3 others were hospitalized. And the guy, by the way, there's no question the motivation, because he phoned the police claiming to pledge allegiance to the so-called Islamic State. So we didn't, over here, the big game is, we'll never know the motive, even if it's written on the bullets. There's no question what the motive was.
Many in the political class are still trying to say that, Megyn, make no mistake. Yeah.
Well, so you go out on your show and said in part the following. This is on the show, the Saturday 5 on GB News, 7.
I'm done. I'm done with the euphemisms. I'm done with the crocodile tears. I'm done with the calls for unity. I'm done being told not to hate. And I'm done skirting around uncomfortable truths. So let's list them. Uncomfortable truth 1. Multiculturalism hasn't merely failed. It has embedded sectarian violence on the streets of the UK and cost countless lives, most recently the lives of Adrian Daubly and Melvin Kravitz in Manchester. Again, strength and love to their families. Uncomfortable truth 2, diversity is not our strength. It has never been our strength. And in fact, it has now become our greatest weakness economically and culturally. And I'm yet to hear any coherent argument for its value that doesn't default to, well, we get good restaurants out of it, which isn't good enough justification for complete cultural and social fracture. And besides, we've got the recipes now anyway. Uncomfortable truth 3, Islamism is a cancer on the UK, and more citizens will die as a result of appeasing it. We need to say these uncomfortable truths loudly, and whilst we still can.
Hear, hear. Good for you. You reminded me a lot of my pal Charlie Kirk as I watched you, because This is a third rail, one of the ones you're not allowed to touch, especially in the UK, and you fully embraced it. Tell me why. Like, was it just the Yom Kippur attack or was it more?
No, it's more than that. And, rewatching that monologue, I stand by what I said. Probably may have gone a bit too heavy on the orange, on the makeup, rewatching that again, but we...
Some of the best people do.
That's exactly right. It's a tribute to the Donald. I said it because I think it is reflective of where many people are at now in the United Kingdom, in Australia, across the Anglosphere, in that 5 years ago, we were bullied into silence on these matters. You were told that if you had legitimate questions about Islam, you were called a racist. And make no mistake, this is a very deliberate attempt from the left to conflate race with culture. Race should be something that should be off limits in terms of criticism. We know that. We know this isn't controversial stuff. But religion is a choice. A cultural decision is a choice. And any sort of choice you should be able to criticise. And it is blatantly obvious, Megyn, and you know this. Most of your audience knows this. There are legitimate questions to be asked around Islam when it comes to the treatment of women, when it comes to the treatment of minority groups, when it comes to the separation between church or mosque and state. And you know what? The answer that you always get is, well, I know a lovely Muslim lady or a lovely Muslim man who lives around the corner from me. And that's fine. No one's saying that there aren't nice people who are Muslims. But the problem comes, when you get to scale. And the reality is that out of the 50-odd Muslim countries in the world, 47 of them aren't democracies. The 3 that are pretty dodgy democracies. 40 of them are authoritarian hellholes. So it's very obvious that when you get to scale in Islamic cultures, you face these problems. And the problem for the UK is that we are rapidly approaching a point where there is going to be scale. By the 2050s or 2060s, I can't recall the exact number, but you're going to get to a point where somewhere between 20 to 25% of the population could be following the Islamic faith. Now, in a country where there isn't compulsory voting, interestingly in Australia there actually is, but say the US or the UK, you just need to have a sectarian voting bloc that can mobilise around an Islamic candidate and a hardline Islamic candidate at that. And suddenly that scale I just mentioned means that you can have fundamental changes to the culture and an undermining of the Western liberal values that we in the US and the UK hold dear.
This problem has been on the radar of those paying attention for quite some time. And we're going to get to this, but just so the listening audience in the United States knows, this is our problem too. We're a lot bigger than the UK, but we have a similar issue. Muslims are now in the majority in Dearborn, Michigan. That's where Rashida Tlaib is a representative for. In Minnesota, there's a huge contingent. That's where Ilhan Omar was elected from. And you've now got the open call to prayer happening 5 times a day on the streets of some of these cities in Minnesota and in Dearborn, 5 times a day, where you hear the call to prayer and then the open praying, Allahu Akbar. Do we have that, Robert? Let's play that. Stand by. I think it's SOT 14.
The city of Minneapolis changed its noise ordinance, now allowing the Islamic call to prayer to be broadcast from speakers year-round 5 times a day. In tonight's Weekend Journal, David Schumann of WCCO reports it is a first for a major U.S. city.
This is Minneapolis.
The Muslim call to prayer, recited in here, heard out there.
It is a very simple message to share the greatness of God and to call people to success.
5 times a day, Muslims gather to pray at mosques, but the broadcast for the pre-dawn and nighttime prayers weren't allowed in Minneapolis until now. The city eliminated time constraints from the part of its noise ordinance related to religious worship. In the summer, that means the call could go out as early as 3:30 a.m. and as late as 11 p.m.
3:30 a.m., people in Minneapolis hearing the call to prayer, and then everybody's down on their knees saying Allahu Akbar. This is happening in the United States, but it's overwhelming already in the UK, which opened its borders about 15 years ago and is now paying the price.
Well, the interesting thing about that clip, Megyn, is how that the local council or authority changed their ordinances in order to make this happen. And it's a small example, but it's a very powerful example of how countries like the UK and the US are going out of their way to change their rules, their customs, their laws, their regulations in order to be kind and tolerant and to embrace this multicultural ideology which we have been, which has been thrust upon us now for 20 or 30 years.
Buy gold and get free silver. That's right. For every $5,000 purchased from Birch Gold Group this month in advance of Veterans Day, they will send you a free patriotic silver round that commemorates the Gadsden and American flags. Look, gold is up over 40% since the beginning of this year, and Birch Gold can help you own it by converting an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Plus, they will send you free silver, honoring our veterans on qualifying purchases. And if you're current or former military, Birch Gold has a special offer just for you. They are waiving custodial fees for the first year on investments of any amount. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, consider diversifying your savings into gold. Text MK to the number 989898 for a free info kit and to claim your eligibility for free silver with qualifying purchases before the end of the month. Again, text MK to the number 989898. Message and data rates may apply. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.